I cannot leave the lab. I need you to smuggle something out for me. What is it? Space bridge coordinates. Nathan's spark skipped a beat. Space bridge? Like the pillars in Dark of the Moon? Soundwave cannot travel here fast enough by conventional flight, Scalpel explained. But if we activate a receiver beacon on Earth, he can bridge directly from orbit. I have the coordinates. I need you to take them to a specific location and build the beacon. Nathan realized the gravity of the situation. If Soundwave bridges here, Starscream is finished. Megatron, if found, gets a competent second in command. If I help Soundwave, I gain a powerful ally against Starscream. I'm on my way, Nathan replied. He looked back at the Hoover Dam one last time. The cube will have to wait. He revved his engine, spun the black sports car around, and sped off toward the Connors Canyon base. Miami. Inside the hangar. Let us go. Sean screamed, struggling against the cable ties binding his wrists. The 6 teenagers were huddled in a corner of the warehouse, surrounded by scrap metal. E-15 loomed over them, his blaster arm transformed. Silence, organics. Please, we won't tell anyone. Alia sobbed. E-13 walked over, holding a data pad. The boss says to interrogate them. Are they spies? E-14 leaned down and sniffed Carl. He smells like fear and cheap cologne. Not a spy. Then we wait, E-13 grumbled. Boss is coming back. He looked at the humans with disdain. If he doesn't come back soon, I'm going to get hungry. Chapter 27, Chapter 27, Space Bridge. Nathan knew about space bridges. A space bridge was a rapid teleportation channel that transcended both space and time concepts, essentially a spatial technology derived from one of Cybertron's 3 divine technologies, the Cybertronian space teleportation tech. In theory, as long as there was sufficient energy, one could reach any destination instantly, no matter the distance. Of course, the prerequisite was knowing the target location's coordinates to establish what was essentially a portal. In contrast to the long-range space bridge technology was the short-range ground bridge. If space bridges were primarily for long-distance object transmission, ground bridges focused on short-range transmission. The maximum range of a ground bridge was limited to within a star system. Beyond the difference in transmission distance, ground bridges only required a teleportation device and an energon pillar for a single person to operate, while space bridges demanded a far more complex preparation process. However, whether ground bridge or space bridge, both required teleportation coordinates for their spatial jumps. Teleportation without coordinates was like a train without a destination who knew where it would end up. Looks like Scalpel has been in contact with Soundwave from the very beginning. Many things suddenly clicked for Nathan. He now understood why Scalpel had recorded Starscream's activity logs and told him to secretly monitor Starscream's movements. Scalpel's purpose in following Starscream to Earth was likely to monitor him opportunistically and quietly report back to Soundwave. Even the teleportation coordinates had probably been prearranged between Scalpel and Soundwave back on Cybertron. Now, something had happened in Starscream's base that prevented Scalpel from leaving the lab, so he'd turned to Nathan for help in establishing the space bridge coordinates. Even though Cybertronians had interstellar-capable spacecraft, nothing beat the convenience of a space bridge that could drop you at your destination in an instant. Having pieced together the rough outline, Nathan pondered for a moment but didn't immediately agree to Scalpel's request. Instead, he headed toward Scalpel's laboratory. Out of caution and obedience, after returning to Starscream's base, he hadn't gone straight to the lab. Instead, per Scalpel's instructions, he'd contacted him first. What's this? Just as he turned into the corridor leading directly to Scalpel's lab, Nathan spotted something surprising. Standing guard at Scalpel's laboratory door was a Decepticon, a completely unfamiliar mid-tier Decepticon. After a moment's thought, Nathan walked slowly toward the Decepticon. I'm the captain of Flight Squadron 4 under Lord Starscream. Who are you? The mid-tier Decepticon glanced up at Nathan, expressionless. I'm T-26, a Decepticon under Lord Starscream, assigned here to protect Lord Scalpel. Got it, Nathan nodded, then turned and walked away. As long as he didn't enter Scalpel's lab, there'd be no cause for suspicion. A casual greeting between colleagues was perfectly reasonable. Only after moving far from Scalpel's lab did Nathan slow his pace to think. This must be Starscream using the info chip Scalpel programmed earlier, plus the undamaged energy core, to create a new mid-tier Decepticon. Clearly, this Decepticon was newly created. All flight squadrons were out on missions. It didn't make sense to recall a captain just to stand guard. Inside Scalpel's laboratory, Scalpel paced anxiously back and forth in the lab. He had no idea that the Nathan he'd been eagerly awaiting was not only in the base's main corridor but had just strolled right past his lab door. Damn, Starscream actually sent someone to monitor me. Scalpel shot a venomous glance at the lab door. How could he not know the mid-tier Decepticon outside was Starscream's deliberate spy? Protection? He couldn't even leave the base. Did he need protection? And T-22, what the hell is he doing? He wouldn't be trying to squeeze me for more benefits again, would he? That greedy bastard! Perhaps Nathan's previous 2 instances of demanding rewards had given Scalpel the wrong impression. Seeing no response to his messages, Scalpel cursed under his breath, then couldn't hold back and sent another. T-22, as long as you help me establish the space bridge coordinates, I'll convince Soundwave to upgrade your frame to high tier. Nathan, walking through the main corridor, suddenly halted, a silent smile creeping across his face. Lord Scalpel, cash on delivery. Cash on delivery. Nathan's smile widened. Happy to serve, Lord Scalpel. How exactly do I establish the teleport coordinates for you? 20 minutes from now, go to the Energon Cube storage room. The Tentaclus will be waiting there. He'll give you an item and teach you how to use it. Once you have it, head to these coordinates, north 33.5 degrees. At that location, establish the teleport coordinates. Nathan read Scalpel's message several times over, then imported the coordinates into his navigation system. Understood, Lord Scalpel. Ending the comms with Scalpel, Nathan thought for a moment and pulled up his data panel. Designation, T-22. Frame armor, titanium bulletproof armor. Weapon modules, 12.6 mm heavy machine gun, right hand, shoulder-mounted multi-rocket launcher, left shoulder. Energy core, Energon core, 58%. Frame grade, mid-tier frame. Combat grade, mid-tier warrior. After wandering outside for so many days, his energy core was down below the passing line. Recharging made perfect sense. Closing the panel, Nathan turned and headed for the Energon Cube storage room. Truth be told, lower Decepticons helping higher ones was natural and expected. Benefits? Getting shot once could count as a benefit. Nathan figured that if it weren't for him being the only Decepticon in Starscream's base that Scalpel could trust, plus knowing too much and having the mission to find that Decepticon ship, Scalpel probably wouldn't have rewarded him so generously multiple times. A blessing in disguise. Sure, I was forced to help Scalpel with some things, but these benefits are real. 40 minutes later. Connor's Canyon. Hiss. With the sound of massive metal doors opening, a deep metallic passage revealed itself in the canyon floor's rock wall. Thud thud thud. A tall, menacing figure stepped out. Nathan, idly toying with an egg-shaped metal orb in his hand. The faint red glow from his optic sensors showed his attention wasn't on the orb. In fact, he was still immersed in his mind, studying the usage instructions given by the Tentaclus. Instructions for using the metal orb. Nathan had thought establishing space bridge coordinates would be some elaborate engineering feat. Instead, it was as simple as taking this orb to a specific location and activating it. Then, that was it. According to the Tentaclus, once activated per the instructions, Soundwave would handle the rest from his end to complete the space bridge teleport. Didn't expect it to be this simple. Nathan shook his head at the orb in his hand, then opened a panel on his chest, revealing a compartment-like subspace. Losing himself wouldn't matter, but losing this orb meant kissing goodbye to Scalpel's promise of a high-tier frame. Every Cybertronian's chest had a micro-storage space created via energy fields, called subspace. Subspace was a folded dimension independent of physical space, capable of shrinking stored objects to 1% of their original volume or smaller, allowing Cybertronians to carry important items on their person. Carefully stowing the metal orb in his chest subspace, Nathan prepared to leave. First, scan a flight mode. Then head back to the abandoned factory in Miami suburbs to check on those 6 unlucky high schoolers. Yes, Nathan now knew the 6 captured by E-15 were high schoolers who'd wandered into the Aiken chemical plant under the guise of exploring. On his way back to Connors Canyon, he'd received E-15's report the interrogation of the 6 kids. He didn't know how E-15 had interrogated them, but judging by the exhaustive, no-holds-barred details, those brats must have been terrified. Wonder whose unlucky kids these are, bored enough to explore an abandoned factory. Muttering to himself, Nathan looked up at the towering canyon walls, searching for an angle. Though Scalpel's matter was crucial, he still decided to detour to Miami first. The activation spot happened to be en route anyway. Moments later, with a massive ignition roar, flames erupted from Nathan's palms. The reactive force from the downward thrusting hot gases slowly lifted his 10,000-pound frame into the air. That's right, with his current car alt mode, leaving the canyon required this crude method. Though the ascent was slow, it beat hand climbing. In under 5 minutes, he burst out of the several hundred-meter deep Connors Canyon. Boom! Landing on the ground, Nathan transformed into the black sports car and sped off in a chosen direction. What Nathan didn't notice was that shortly after he left Connors Canyon, a strangely shaped Cybertronian fighter jet nearly identical to his previous alt mode shot up from the canyon into the sky. 5 new chapters at 500 power stones. Chapter 28, Chapter 28, Silver Fox Interceptor. 1 hour later. Montana, Dayton City. Vroom. A sleek black sports car flashed down the wide, pristine Iverson Avenue in Dayton City, turning heads left and right. If there was one place with more aircraft than Air Force bases, it had to be aviation museums dedicated to displaying them, and Dayton City happened to house the National Air Force Museum. That was exactly why Nathan had come here. The museum lacked the heavy security of military bases but offered a rich selection of aircraft for him to choose from. It was the perfect spot to scan a new alt mode. Montana sat north of Nevada, with Dayton City right on the border and close to Connors Canyon. In just 1 hour, Nathan had arrived. The Air Force Museum wasn't in downtown Dayton but in the suburbs, right next to a military base. Though adjacent to a base, the museum's defenses were lax. Pulling into the rear tarmac, Nathan activated his optical camouflage. So many. Surveying the tarmac packed with aircraft, Nathan let out a sigh of admiration. Aviation museums doubled as aircraft graveyards, though this one paled compared to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, the true boneyard housing over 6,000 retired planes in an endless sea. Why not Davis-Monthan? Simple, active-duty planes were riskier than retired museum pieces. Even laymen knew which to pick. With the massive exhibition halls designed for big aircraft and it being a rest day with only a handful of staff, Nathan moved through the museum like he owned it. Spotting a Blackbird State Route 71 on display, he paused, remembering Skyfire from the original films. Skyfire's alt mode was a Blackbird, and his resting place was also an aviation museum. Somewhere in the Asian region. Nathan recalled vaguely. In the films, Skyfire had entered stasis due to energy depletion and was later awakened by Sam after the Fallen arrived on Earth. Stasis and dormancy were similar, self-induced versus forced by damage. Shaking his head, Nathan dismissed Skyfire. He knew Skyfire's location but had zero intention of waking him or even interacting. A Decepticon loyal to the Autobots? He'd be scrap metal in seconds. If Optimus was mockingly called a cyber traitor in his past life, Skyfire was undeniably a Decepti traitor. Skyfire was just a footnote. After glancing at the Blackbird, Nathan soon found his prize. Ya-22 prototype codename Silver Fox. It matched his designation perfectly. The Silver Fox shared the Blackbird's long fuselage, twin-engine layout, and swept wings over 30 meters long with a 15-meter wingspan. The difference? A broader nose and smoother lines. Nathan chose it for its role as a high-altitude interceptor, topping out at Mach 3.5. Faster than even Starscream's alt mode. Of course, speed came at a cost: light armament. If typical fighters were balanced warriors, the Silver Fox was a glass cannon assassin. But for Cybertronians, where armor was secondary, Nathan lived by one creed: the fastest blade breaks all defenses. Scanning the Silver Fox drained 5% from his energy core. Nathan wasn't surprised his carscan had done the same. He suspected energy cost, alongside weapon module conflicts, was why most Cybertronians stuck to one alt mode. Through these changes, he'd felt minor discomfort. Stronger warriors or those with more modules likely felt it worse. Cybertronian weapons were picky too, not every module fit every frame or spot. Ultimately, transformations followed the T-Cog's optimal paths, not the user's whims. The T-Cog planned routes during scans. Phew, jet mode suits me best. Transforming back, Nathan felt relief his robot mode reverted to his original sleek form. Time to go. Circling briefly, he logged the museum's coordinates. Something told him he'd return. Leaving Dayton, Nathan rocketed toward Miami. At full throttle, Mach 3.5, energy be damned, he reached the Aiken chemical plant suburbs in under an hour. Boom. Sir, you're back. A waiting Decepticon approached as the Silver Fox touched down. What's this? Ignoring him, Nathan frowned, scanning the trashed factory. It had been fine when he left. How had it turned into this wreck? Whatever. Time for a new base anyway. He held back from scolding. Squadron 4 hadn't caused a major incident, he was satisfied. Expectations were low. The site was compromised anyway. Glancing around, Nathan turned to E-15. The 6 humans. In the workshop, sir. E-13 and the others are guarding them. Take me there. Yes, sir. Led by E-15, Nathan entered the hiding spot he'd chosen. The clones had trashed elsewhere but spared their workshop. Sir, this way. Deep inside, Nathan spotted his targets, 6 ragged high schoolers huddled by a massive chemical machine, filthy and miserable. 3 menacing Decepticons E-13's team stood guard in a fan formation. The kids looked rough but unmarked, just exhausted. They seemed resigned to alien captivity, heads down, silent. Or maybe broken from interrogation. Nathan doubted anyone would freeze upon seeing a moving robot. Unless scared stupid. Sir, you're here. The other 3 clones snapped to attention. Nathan nodded. All of you, out. They blinked, then, yes, sir. The sudden shift caught the teens' attention. Sean, Carl, and the others despairing their fate perked up when one robot left, hoping for rescue. But he returned, with a taller alien robot. Initially, they'd thought the junior Decepticons were secret military weapons more plausible than extraterrestrials. Interrogation had disabused them of that. These were no Earth toys. Chapter 29, Planting the First Seed. After E-13 and the others left, Nathan carefully examined the 6 high schoolers. Unbeknownst to him, his scrutiny stirred unrest among Sean and the group. Do you think we're about to be silenced? One girl stammered, staring at the towering, menacing robot, the outcome she dreaded most. now seeming inevitable. Her words unleashed a chorus of sobs. Wah! Sean, this is all your fault. Who told you to bring us here? We came for ghosts and found aliens instead, and now they've captured us. I wanna go home. I don't wanna stay here. Quiet down. Sean suddenly raised his voice, cutting through the chaos. He forced calm. Don't panic. Let me analyze this. If these robots know, these alien robots wanted us dead, they could have done it when we escaped this afternoon. Why bother recapturing us each time? Just to imprison us. Despite his logic, fear laced his voice. Sean, even if you're right, so what? We're still trapped, Carl retorted. Instead of guessing their motives, think how to escape. Now that there's only one here, we could split up. He can't catch us all. No. Alia interrupted sharply. She glared at Carl, then explained, how do you know the other four aren't waiting outside? They might be hoping we run. Sean's right, they must have a reason. At least they won't kill us. Carl opened his mouth to argue but found no comeback. Alia continued, haven't you noticed? When this biggest robot entered, the smaller ones were super respectful, bowing and saying something. She couldn't understand Cybertronian, but she'd caught E13's deference. Like. A girl hesitated, puzzled. But what does that mean, Alia? We're still. It means this robot outranks the others. Alia cut in. His size alone shows he's stronger. Even stronger. Then we're doomed, no escape now. Alia facepalmed in exasperation. That's not the point. He's likely their leader. Now that the leader's here, it means. Inside the workshop, Nathan watched with interest, catching every whisper. He mentally praised the girl under such stress, maintaining basic composure for rational analysis, with mostly accurate conclusions. Her insight far exceeded a typical high schooler's. Of the six, only Sean and this Alia earned his respect, unlike the others, whimpering endlessly. Who said this place only teaches happy education? Smart ones exist. Figured out in 3 sentences, I won't harm them. Indeed, from the start, Nathan had no intention of doing anything to these accidental intruders. He wasn't a bleeding heart saint, but neither a bloodthirsty killer. For those not in his way, he was magnanimous. Of course, another key reason drove this decision, the primary one, really. The Transformers plot was about to officially begin. Nathan had a vague idea brewing: if Autobots could ally with humans, why not him? He lacked the Decepticons' arrogant superiority complex. He didn't look down on humans. He planned to seek mutual benefit with humanity once the timing was right. But for cooperation, first contact was crucial. A botched approach might kill talks in him. As a former human, he knew their playbook too well. Imagine, an extraterrestrial suddenly appears publicly, offering cooperation. Would anyone immediately agree? No. Capture and dissect first. Cooperation required equal power. Otherwise, you'd end up as the main course. Without sufficient strength, Nathan wouldn't pursue it, but he could plant seeds now. Cooperation thrived on mutual goodwill, not the Decepticons' kill-on-sight reputation that made them pariahs. Nathan couldn't change Decepticon chaos, nor did he want to bite off what you can chew. He couldn't fix the faction, but he could sweep his own doorstep. He had no desire to hide like a rat after Megatron's fall. In this unsafe world without God mode cheats, planning 3 steps ahead was habit. These idle moves might never pay off, but if there was even a slim chance, a little time and effort was worth it. Perhaps E13's team disdained chatting with the kids, or spoke only Cybertronian during interrogations. Thus, Sean and crew knew only alien robots, nothing about origins or affiliations. Resigned to no escape, they speculated wildly on the robots' backstory. Seeing them veer into nonsense, Nathan ended his observation. Girl, You're Alia. He lowered his head, optics fixed on the blonde. Admittedly, the six had decent looks, especially Alia. Genuine sky blue eyes blinking captivatingly, even dirt smeared, her delicate features and fair skin shone. Silky golden shoulder-length hair added doll-like refinement. Though now Cybertronian, Nathan's aesthetics were human-formed. He could still appreciate blonde beauty. "Why yes, sir, I'm Alia," she stammered, chin raised, voice trembling with fear. Despite her earlier logic, she lacked full confidence. "Am I that scary?" Nathan frowned at her quivering, near tears form. "Wasted my earlier praise. Falling apart already? Girl, you, forget it." Sudden disinterest hit him, followed by amusement. Why compete with 17-18-year-olds? He was Cybertronian, now a fearsome Decepticon. No need to explain to a teen, or humble himself with past human politeness. Mindset shifted, Nathan lost desire for deep talk. He just wanted them gone fast. "You've grasped your situation. Who we are doesn't matter." He flashed a disarming smile. "I can release you, but I get it." Before he finished, eager voices chimed. "Alien sir, we swear we won't tell about this afternoon." "Yet, no one asks, nothing happened. Right, even if police come, I won't say, wah." Alia clamped a girl's mouth. "You idiot. If we don't spill, why would police come? We were just exploring. Saw nothing. Our mess? We fell ourselves." Chapter 30, Uninhabited Island. "Excellent." Nathan nodded approvingly at the six survivors' strong will to live. "I'm glad you all think this way." Amid Alia and the others' relieved expressions, Nathan smiled faintly, "And since this is our first meeting, please accept these small gifts." As his words fell, 6 small paper slips fluttered down from above their heads. "What's this?" Carl curiously picked one up. Before he could look, a voice came from overhead. "These are 6 checks for $10,000 each. You can cash them at First Union Bank or any affiliated bank." A friendly reminder, this money was robbed. Alia and the group first stared in disbelief at the checks, then exchanged varied glances. "If you reveal my existence, not only will you lose this $10,000, but you might also be charged with aiding and abetting." Nathan's mild tone now sounded like a devil tempting them to fall. The world's most unreliable thing? Verbal promises. Nathan trusted their fear of prison more than their oaths. As for refusing? Decepticon mercy has limits. TCH, didn't expect that billion I casually stole would come in handy so soon. Watching the 2 urban SUVs fade into the distance outside the factory, Nathan withdrew his gaze. Alia and the 6 had ultimately accepted the $10,000 checks. 10 grand was no small sum anytime, especially for high schoolers. Too much would have backfired. Humans were greedy. If someone wanted to snitch, the others who truly pocketed the cash would object first. "Sir." The 4 Decepticons gathered. Though puzzled by releasing the humans, they wisely stayed silent. "We can't stay here. Find a new hideout yourselves shortly." Nathan glanced at E13 and crew. If not for their racket, no curious teens would have come. A new hideout. E16 glanced reluctantly at the Aiken factory. "Sir, aren't you coming with?" "No, I have a secret mission from Lord Starscream. Handle yourselves." Nathan waved dismissively, not revealing the truth. "Soundwave's coming. Who has time for you minnows? Wait till I upgrade to high tier." Indeed, Nathan was heading to establish the space bridge coordinates. The teens were an afterthought, already forgotten. Hearing this, the 4 exchanged looks, then chorused helplessly, "Yes, sir." Such a hands-off captain gave freedom, but left them uneasy. "Send me the new location once found. Keep comms open." I'll contact you if needed. Yes, Sir X4. Nathan nodded curtly, his gaze sharpening as he scanned them. And pick somewhere far from human cities. No more attracting them. Hoping Decepticons curb destruction urges? Better make them choose remote spots practically. He never expected much from E13 anyway. Decepticons had high freedom on vague missions. Starscream hadn't summoned the 7 squad captains lately proof. With final instructions, Nathan transformed into Silver Fox Interceptor and rocketed toward the NAV coordinates. Meanwhile, the 2 SUVs sped back to Miami under Sean and Carl's heavy feet. Only seeing the school gates afar did the shaken 6 exhale. Parking on campus, they gathered by a small lake on a lush grassy knoll. After silence, Alia spoke first. I think we shouldn't tell anyone about this afternoon. Her factory gasps were old news, she cut straight in. Dead serious, fearing they'd underestimate the danger, those alien robots know where we live. If we don't follow that robot's words, they might come knocking. Everyone shivered. Interrogation had spilled everything. Defy him? Shudder, no way, their frail bodies stopped 2-story alien robots. Sean clutched his pocketed check, eyes hesitating before firming. I agree. I won't voluntarily speak of this afternoon. Voluntarily? Carl puzzled. Yes, Sean nodded frankly. I won't tell anyone unprompted. But if police come, I'll tell everything. Without holding back. Hearing Alia and Sean, the other 4 exchanged glances, silently agreeing. Fine, Sean's way. If cops come, we'll tell then. Yeah, those robots are too dangerous. Let the arrogant ones handle it. Right? Don't want aliens knocking at midnight. Maybe others found them too. Government's probably known forever, not our problem. Reasons piled, easing consciences. No one mentioned the checks as if the slips didn't exist. Thus, consensus, don't volunteer, don't refuse. Of course, fear of reprisal versus greed for fresh $10,000? Only they knew. After under 30 minutes flight, Nathan reached his destination, an uninhabited island deep in the Atlantic. Scalpel's coordinate spot wasn't in America or elsewhere but this nameless islet. How remote. Uncharted on official maps. Without precise coords, he'd never find it. Why here? Nathan guessed a pre-Earth setup by Scalpel. Arriving overhead near dusk, fiery red clouds painted the sea shimmering crimson, a vast, majestic canvas. Nathan ignored the vista. Landing on the island's largest clearing, he shifted to robot mode and retrieved the hidden ovoid metal orb from his chest. Afterthought, he didn't activate immediately, messaging Scalpel. Lord Scalpel, I've reached the coordinate site. Activate space bridge beacon now. So fast? Wait. Scalpel sounded shocked, vanishing briefly. Nathan smirked. Why detour to the museum? For this speed. At my speed, circling Earth takes under 10 hours. Cybertronian vehicles ignored pilot fatigue with fuel, max speed 24/7. His 4,000 plus km/h top end meant Earth orbit truly under 10 hours. This velocity enabled his afternoon multi-site hopping. Speed brought not just agility, but time. With Scalpel silent, Nathan scanned the island. Typical, central mountain, ringed by jungle and beaches. His landing beach was the biggest. 5 new chapters at 500 power stones. Chapter 31, Chapter 31, outsmarted by his own smarts. T22, begin establishing the teleport coordinates now. Nathan had just finished surveying the island when Scalpel's message arrived. He guessed Scalpel had been coordinating with Soundwave, prepping their end. Understood, Lord Scalpel. Replying, Nathan glanced around, this spot works. The open beach was spacious enough, perfect. Palm extended, revealing the metal orb. Plain and seamless, like solid metal. But Nathan knew better. Following Tentaclus's activation steps, the orb split apart, transforming into a multi-part iron tower like a transceiver antenna, nearly half his height. Once transformation halted, Nathan planted it in the sand, stepping back to watch it pulse with light. Now we wait, hey. Mid-step, Nathan's head snapped skyward. A black speck appeared on the horizon like a distant bird. But his enhanced vision revealed a plane heading straight for him. The roar grew louder as it enlarged, shape clarifying. Cybertronian fighter. Nathan's optics narrowed, unease rising. The fighter circled the island, then dove toward him. Nathan glanced at the tower. Fully active, no time to stow it. Tentaclus hadn't taught retrieval anyway. Clank. Hovering overhead, the fighter shifted to robot mode, landing with a thud that cratered the sand. T-24. Nathan identified him instantly, right arm slipping behind his back. Why is he here? Had T-24 been tailing him? T-22, what are you doing here? T-24 asked immediately upon landing. The familiar tone recalled their base corridor chat. T-24 scanned curiously, optics locking on the tower. What's that? As you see, a signal device. Secret mission from Lord Starscream. Nathan lied smoothly, closing distance while T-24 fixated. Secret mission. T-24 frowned. He'd shadowed from Connor's Canyon. Starscream wasn't even at base. How a secret task? Pre-assigned maybe? T-24, where's your squadron? Nathan asked casually, sidling up. T-24's gaze stayed glued, still hunting Lord Megatron. In America then. Relief hit. Right hand morphed silently into the 12.6mm heavy machine gun, barrel creeping behind T-24. Right, T-24, why are you here? Starscream sent backup. No, I followed you secretly. Rat-tat-tat. T-24's words cut off by roaring gunfire. Nathan's Gatling spun wildly, hosing T-24's back with lead. Ah! T-24 screamed, bullets slamming him face first into sand. Caught flat-footed, he ate a dozen rounds. T-22. What the you shot me? Ignoring wounds, T-24 propped up, whirling furious. Shock and rage, he never expected a fellow Starscream Decepticon to attack. Nathan's face stayed stone, optics cold. The ambush wounded T-24 badly, no escape risk. Don't blame me, T-24. You should have never tailed me. Nathan shook his head. Regrettable, but necessary. T-24 had seen the space bridge beacon. No letting him go. Even if bluffed now, later report to Starscream? Big trouble. Shoulder armor parted, revealing 4 dark muzzles. Nathan advanced, arm raised. Monk or friend, easy choice. T-24's rage overpowered panic at the brain-facing barrel. As barrels spun, pre-firing, he morphed his arm to grenade launcher. Boom! Boom! Unprepared, Nathan's chest took the full blast, staggering back. Humph! Death throes. Pain flared, but scalpel upgraded armor held no serious damage. Left shoulder ignited, 4 rockets streaked. What? T-24 rose just in time for 2 rockets to chest, 2 to head. Blinding explosions. He crumpled. T-22, you, B.A., bastard. Voice glitching, neck speakers fried. You, dare, betray. STA. Stars. Starscream's name jolted Nathan comms. T-24 lay chest shattered, energy core flickering. Left arm gone, sparking on sand. T-22. Wait. Starscream, won't, forgive. Nathan ignored threats, looming to grip T-24's helm. Squeeze. Ah. T-22. Head alone, T-24 lingered until Nathan crushed harder. Optics dimmed. Rifling the wrecked skull, Nathan extracted his prize, a near-colorless irregular crystal memory crystal. Football-sized, like clear agate. Left arm formed a slot. Nathan slotted it carefully. Blue beam shot from chest, projecting holographic images mid-air. Moments later, footage raced like a highlight reel. Nathan's optics blazed, absorbing intently. Finally, it froze. Nathan exhaled. Few no comm to Starscream. Cybertronian vitals, chest, head. Lucky T-24 blocked rockets with arm. Hearing Starscream mentioned, Nathan feared a report, hence hasty kill and crystal check. Slot reopened. Nathan withdrew the crystal. One expected yet surprising revelation: T-24's info chip was the tampered one, scalpel rigged. Corridor suspicions confirmed. More absurd, T-24 never noticed his own anomaly. Obeyed Starscream purely on hierarchy instinct, assuming all identical. Nathan glanced at the headless corpse, crushing the crystal to dust. Info gained, no need. Left over? Risk other Cybertronians tracing to him. T-24's tail reason? Simple, mistook Nathan finding Megatron, tracked from Kenyan exit. Nathan almost laughed. T-24, king of assumptions, previously Starscream favoritism, now Megatron lead. Outsmarted by his own smarts. Chapter 32, Kaon City. Milky Way Galaxy, Centauri System. Among the Milky Way's 50-plus star systems, Centauri was nearest the solar system but unknown to Sol's inhabitants. They didn't know one of Centauri's stars hosted an ancient metal planet, nor that mechanical life had thrived there since birth. Yes, that planet was Cybertron. War-torn, it appeared from space as a massive black hole, nearly lightless. Only scattered glows persisted. Once prosperous, endless civil war had drained 99% resources. Devastated understated it. Yet today, a light that never dimmed since war's end flickered with change to shake Cybertron's balance. Cybertron, Kaon City. Kaon's second largest city-state after Iacon and earliest Decepticon stronghold, meticulously built. Teeming with elite warriors, true Decepticon heart. Even with Iacon's power symbol conquered, Kaon housed a top commander class, Soundwave. Cybertron's governance, provincial, one city per province. Most city-states had lords, councils, autonomy under central Iacon. War shattered that. Survival of fittest reigned. In Kaon's vast assembly plaza, junior Decepticons hauled supplies. Senior ones checked gear, prepping missions. All stole glances at a silver-grey Decepticon not tallest, but aura commanding. Optics held awe. Newly forged post-war whispered. Soundwave usually stays in Skeletal Fortress. Decades without sighting. Why today? No recent Autobot ops announced. Dunno, but he seems waiting. Who merits Soundwave personally greeting? Some Decepticon bigshot. Yeah, above our pay grade. Deliver these munitions to Barricade first. Fool, don't call him his old name. After Soundwave revived him, Barricade hates it. Don't mention it near him. Thanks. Served under Stunt Icon, guarding Mercury Sea mines since Spark Up. Just transferred to Skeletal Fortress. News to me. Mercury Sea? Hellhole. Soundwave heard, face impassive. As Chief Intelligence Officer controlling Decepticon comms, he sifted endless data daily. Worse breaches occurred, he ignored non-treason/non-harm acts. Mere gossip? Beneath notice from small fry. Motionless till a Cybertronian ship approached. Small, bizarre craft streaked overhead. Clanks, it shifted to a towering Decepticon with glaring cyclopean eye. Shockwave. You've arrived. Soundwave named him. Few warranted his weight. Visitor, one such Shockwave, commanding most Decepticon forces, military ops chief. Soundwave, why summon me urgently? Couldn't COMM. Shockwave's tone icy, not anger, innate. Inside, Soundwave gestured to Skeletal Fortress, ignoring. Shockwave eyed busy plaza, nodded, fine. Skeletal Fortress loomed Kaon's heart, a colossal castle. Dark, menacing, yet majestic like a slumbering urban beast. Skull on Metal World felt odd unless knowing origins. Built by Megatron from captured Autobots. Not labor parts. Deepest, infamous tyranny relic smelting pool. Originally material decomposer for construction feedstock. Kaonites used it for public executions, Iacon banned it. Decepticons reopened for captives. Thus, Skeletal Fortress born war microcosm. Megatron made it HQ. Now, in Decepticon Nerve Center, top brass conferred. Soundwave/Shockwave, Commander Class, Taciturn Soundwave Profession, Shockwave Nature. Shockwave's cruelty legendary. Ruthless ops, minimize losses, maximize kills. Yet learning Soundwave's Earth departure, the silent warlord spoke more. Soundwave, Earthbound confirmed. Yes, Soundwave affirmed. Starscream's unreliable. Scalpel reports shady activities. Humph. Shockwave snorted. Not Starscream if he didn't. Soundwave smiled slyly, unang-aired, exactly. I'll slip there quietly, see what he's hiding. He'd told Starscream 3 days really soon, post-beacon. Advance team ready. COMM ploy, misdirection. Shockwave ignorant of details, uncaring anyway. Megatron's era, each handled turf. Now absent? Less so. Decepticons, selfish loners. No meddling sends self-interest. You summoned to announce departure. Shockwave asked by window, Soundwave adjacent. View, plaza below, much of Kaon. No, Soundwave shook head. Abandoning Kaon. Transferring all forces to you. Post-departure, Commander-less Kaon falls to Autobot guerrillas. Long war, Decepticon victory, Autobots persisted, more vexing. Chapter 33, Shadows of the Ancient World. The remnants of the Autobots had fractured into guerrilla cells following the Great War. These strike teams drifted like ghosts, launching hit-and-run ambushes on Decepticon supply lines with maddening unpredictability. Compared to the days when the Autobots held fixed territories, these phantom insurgents were a far more grueling plague. Constrained by dwindling manpower and depleted resources, the Decepticons lacked the means to conduct a planetary purge. They were forced into a posture of passive defense, a strategic stalemate that left even the most hardened commanders feeling powerless. Shockwave, ever the pragmatist, understood the gravity of the situation. After a heavy silence, he gave a sharp, clinical nod. Agreed. We shall consolidate our forces at Iacon. With my garrison holding the city, you may proceed without concern. Soundwave did not register surprise. While Decepticon internal politics were notoriously bloody, they maintained a fierce unity against the Autobot threat, and his rapport with Shockwave had always been built on mutual logic. Furthermore, Soundwave added, I am leaving the majority of my Minicon partition behind. I have briefed them, they will operate under your direct command. The Minicons. Shockwave's singular optic flared with genuine surprise. It was common knowledge within the ranks that the Minicon cassettes were Soundwave's private shadow cabinet. In the past, he had never permitted outside interference with them, let alone offered them up for deployment. Soundwave, Shockwave pressed, his voice vibrating with a low frequency. Are you truly so certain Megatron is on that planet? Their relationship was more of a partnership than a hierarchy, thus, Shockwave addressed the High Lord by name. Shockwave, that world is significant. A cryptic light flickered in Soundwave's visor. He turned his gaze toward the horizon of the dead world. My data mining has uncovered records dating back to the age of the Primes. That planet appears in our most ancient archives. You understand the implication. Shockwave's frame stiffened. You mean, the dynasty of primes visited that world? More than that. Soundwave nodded slowly, then shook his head. I suspect the planet itself shares a clandestine link with Cybertron. Unfortunately, time was an enemy I could not defeat. I was unable to extract deeper intelligence. If possible, I require you to access the restricted sectors for me. Shockwave inclined his head. The archives. I shall see to it. He knew exactly which restricted sector Soundwave meant, the Great Archives of Iacon. Once the heart of Cybertronian history and scientific research, it had housed the Allspark chamber for eons. Since the cube's disappearance, the chamber had sat as a hollow, energon-starved tomb, but the data vaults remained. One more thing, Soundwave added, as if an afterthought. I have not informed the Kaon garrison of my departure. I will require you to manage the transition. You want me to lead them out of Kaon in 3 days. Soundwave had kept his cards close. Though Starscream was currently on Earth, his sycophants remained on Cybertron. A premature leak could compromise the entire operation. Correct. Cybertron is in your hands. Rest easy, Shockwave replied, his voice as cold as the void. With Optimus Prime absent, Ultra Magnus is the only variable. I can manage him. Very well. I shall. Soundwave's sentence cut short. His frame locked for a microsecond before a crimson pulse flared in his visor. Shockwave. It is time. Without a backward glance, Soundwave turned. His chest plate cycled open with a mechanical hiss, launching a jagged, avian drone into the smog-choked sky. Laserbeak. Summon Barricade and the others. As you command, Master. The skeletal fortress, Assembly Square. Below, in the shadow of the fortress, Decepticon laborers toiled, hauling crates of heavy munitions. They remained oblivious to the fact that the city they were so diligently fortifying was about to be abandoned. They moved with the frantic energy of a looming offensive, assuming a high-level strike against the Autobots was imminent. Tucked away in a quiet corner of the square, 4 figures stood apart from the chaos. Passing soldiers didn't just ignore them, they actively veered away, muffling their footsteps as if afraid to draw the gaze of the 4 predators. The fear was justified. 2 of the figures were the most lethal elite-tier combatants in Kaon, Barricade and Blackout. Barricade, formerly a high-ranking enforcer in the Cybertronian Constabulary, had been killed during the early riots before being resurrected by Soundwave's hand years ago. Before his death, he was a master scout. Since his revival, his prowess had only sharpened into something more predatory. Beside him stood Blackout, a former member of the Special Operations Group. Driven out by bureaucratic infighting, he had channeled his rage into the Decepticon cause, becoming Megatron's most loyal hound. As a commander of the orbital fortress, he was a titan of aerial devastation. The other 2 Brawl, a heavy ordnance specialist from the Combat Icons, and Bone Crusher, a fractured clone birthed from Soundwave's research, were high-tier warriors, though they paled slightly in the presence of the 2 elites. As they waited for Soundwave's summons, the silence grew heavy. Blackout watched Barricade cycle a pair of brutal-looking spiked flails, his latest weapon upgrade. Barricade, Blackout droned, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. Are those your new toys? Close quarters, morning stars. Barricade didn't look up. He spun the flails faster, the chains whistling through the thin atmosphere. Blackout gave a low, metallic snort of derision. Can your chains stop a high-explosive sabot round at 2 kilometers? For a pilot who favored long-range saturation bombing, melee weapons were the desperate tools of the obsolete. Barricade's optics narrowed. Since his resurrection, whispers had circulated that his spark had dimmed, that he wasn't the hunter he used to be. He had forged these flails to crush those whispers along with the skulls of his detractors. The opportunity had arrived. Barricade's mouth plates peeled back into a bloodthirsty sneer. Blackout, would you like to provide a field test? The chain rattled as he tightened his grip. I promise they'll cave your helm in before your sensors even register a target lock. Bold words. Blackout's frame hummed as a massive heavy cannon began to cycle into place from his back plating. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and impending violence. Bone Crusher and Brawl exchanged a look of weary resignation. As high-tier soldiers, they weren't about to step between two elites, lest they get caught in the crossfire. The tension snapped when a shadow swept over them. The Master commands. Assemble at the bridge. Laserbeak hovered above, his optics cold and indifferent to their posturing. As a direct extension of Soundwave, he feared no one in the square. Barricade and Blackout locked optics for one more lingering second before simultaneously retracting their weapons with a harsh hiss. The Master saved you today, Barricade spat, snapping his combat visor shut. Next time, you won't be so lucky. Save that for the scrap heap, Blackout retorted. Without Soundwave's favor, your head would already be a trophy on my hull. Earth, uninhabited island. Nathan stood by a fresh mound of sand on the beach. At the bottom of the pit lay the mangled chassis of T-24. To Nathan, a mid-tier frame was a goldmine of parts, but he couldn't risk bringing it back to Starscream's base. To ensure there was zero chance of a miracle recovery, he had systematically crushed T-24's spark casing and shredded the memory core. Kill the witness, bury the body, why does this feel so familiar? He shook his head, looking down at a small dent in his chest plating. He began kicking sand into the hole. Taking a direct hit from T-24's grenade launcher had left its mark. His armor was scarred, but he was alive. Having spent enough time in this metal skin, Nathan had fully integrated into his new reality. There was no lingering human guilt, only a cold analysis of his performance. This had been his first true life-or-death struggle against a Cybertronian. Fortunately, Cybertronian combat wasn't a choreographed martial art, it was a brutal exchange of physics and firepower. By striking first and utilizing the high-spec upgrades Scalpel had provided, he had ended the threat in seconds. Once the pit was level with the rest of the beach, Nathan stomped the sand down until the site looked undisturbed. Cybertronians were masters of high technology, not omniscient sorcerers. They couldn't track a scent or sense a spark from kilometers away. If he had known T-24 was tailing him, he would have led the drone on a chase across the continent before finishing him. He turned toward the ocean, his processors already calculating his next move toward the Witwicky residence. Chapter 34, Chapter 34, The Decepticon Vanguard. Nathan had just returned to the beach where the transmission coordinates were set when he noticed a violent disturbance in the metal tower. The spire, which had been dormant since activation, suddenly erupted. A pillar of blinding white light lanced upward, piercing the stratosphere. So, it's starting. Nathan froze for a microsecond, a surge of relief cycling through his processors. He had cut it close. If he had been a minute slower in burying T-24, the arrival would have caught him mid-act. The tower began to pulse, the radiance expanding in rhythmic waves. Had this been anywhere other than a desolate, forgotten island, it would have been the headline of every news outlet on the planet by dawn. Though it was called a space bridge, the manifestation wasn't always a physical door. It could be a beacon, a wormhole, or as it was now a searing conduit of raw energy. Under Nathan's watchful optics, the light reached a critical threshold. The air screamed as the reality of physics was forcibly peeled back, culminating in a flash that blotted out the horizon. Then, as the glare receded, several towering silhouettes materialized on the sand. The Decepticons have arrived. Let this planet tremble in fear. Ha ha ha. I smell moisture. Let's see where this organic rock has tucked us away. Wait, what is this place? Why is there water everywhere? Bone Crusher, you simpleton, it's an ocean. Did you purge the data packet Soundwave just sent you? Arg. This disgusting grit is getting into my joints. I'll burn this entire beach to slag. Watching from behind a jagged reef, Nathan felt his internal circuitry twitch. Of course, he thought. Every Decepticon squad had at least one or two glitchheads who weren't playing with a full deck of processors. He didn't dare linger in the shadows any longer. He emerged from the rocks, moving with a measured, respectful gait toward the lead figure. He dipped his head low. Lord Soundwave. Welcome to Earth. Nathan recognized him instantly. That iconic, faceless visor and the cold, resonant frequency of his spark, it was undeniably Soundwave. The greeting caught Soundwave's attention. Having stabilized after the spatial transit, the spymaster turned his gaze toward the mid-tier drone. He was aware that this particular unit had been instrumental in anchoring the space bridge. Decepticon. Fall back for now. I will summon you shortly. Ah. Nathan blinked, then quickly recovered. Understood, Lord Soundwave. In truth, he was more than happy to clear out. Standing before a group of warriors who were all, at minimum, high-tier elites, felt like a sheep wandering into a wolf den. One foul mood from any of them, and he'd be nothing but scrap metal. In the Decepticon hierarchy, being low rank wasn't just a title, it was a death sentence waiting for an excuse. Whoosh! Transforming into his jet mode, Nathan soared toward the island's central peak. He calculated the distance carefully, far enough to give them privacy for their mission briefing, but close enough that he remained clearly visible to Soundwave. Once Nathan was clear, Soundwave turned back to his hand-picked vanguard. Proceed according to the primary objective. Remember, until Lord Megatron is located, do not reveal your presence to the indigenous population. His visor flared a deeper red. And above all, do not let Starscream discover you are here. Is that clear? By your command, Lord Soundwave. Barricade and the others stood at attention. They knew the stakes. This was a shadow operation, a hunt for their true leader, hidden from the eyes of the usurper currently squatting in the Earth's orbit. Only Bone Crusher scratched his helm, looking somewhat disgruntled by the constraints. Soundwave watched the brute's erratic behavior and felt a simulated sigh in his logic centers. If he had a choice, he would have brought more stable soldiers, but these four Barricade, Blackout, Brawl, and Bone Crusher offered the perfect balance of raw power and unshakable loyalty. Soundwave made a tactical adjustment. Brawl. I am here, Lord Soundwave. You and Bone Crusher are diverted from the primary search. Take him and find a secure location on this planet to lie dormant. You are our heavy reserve. Soundwave turned to the elites. The hunt for Megatron is now solely the responsibility of Barricade and Blackout. They possess the necessary infiltration protocols. Brawl, watch Bone Crusher. Do not let him cause a disturbance. Brawl glanced at the twitching Bone Crusher. Understood. I'll keep him on a short leash. From his vantage point on the peak, Nathan watched the figures move. His memory core was racing. In the original 2007 timeline, only a handful of Decepticons were active on Earth before Megatron's thaw. This squad Soundwave had brought was the exact roster from the first film's assault. Though they hadn't scanned Earth vehicles yet and were still in their proto-form states, the raw, silvery mechanical look Optimus and the others had when they first crashed as meteors, Nathan could identify them by their silhouettes and energy signatures. Barricade, Blackout, Brawl, Bone Crusher, and Soundwave. A perfect five-bot squad. It was a Decepticon tradition, rooted in the legacy of combiner teams. 5 was the magic number for a self-sustaining tactical unit. Is that frenzy? Nathan saw a small, spindly form scramble out of Soundwave's chest plate and latch onto Barricade's back. Frenzy. The master hacker. In the movie, he was the one who infiltrated Air Force One and found the Hoover Dam's location. Seeing him go with Barricade confirmed that Soundwave's plan was already in motion. Nathan watched with a mix of awe and envy. The Minicon partitioned Soundwave's private army of spies. Information was the only currency that never devalued, and Soundwave's status as Chief of Intelligence was built entirely on the backs of those tiny, lethal cassettes. One day, Nathan thought, I'll have my own network. As the last of the strike team departed the island to find their alt modes, Nathan didn't wait for a signal. He descended from the peak and landed softly near the spy master. Lord Soundwave. You have arrived at the opportune moment. Soundwave's tone was neutral, not warm, but certainly not as hostile as he was with others. Scalpel's recommendation seemed to be carrying weight. Scalpel informed me of your performance. You have managed the Earth logistics well. Nathan's internal fans kicked up a notch. He wondered exactly how much the doctor had told Soundwave. Had he mentioned the T-24 incident? Probably not. T-24 was a Starscream loyalist, and Soundwave likely viewed his disappearance as a cleaning of the ranks. Nathan played the part of the humble soldier perfectly. I only did what was necessary for the cause, Lord Soundwave. With your arrival, the return of Lord Megatron is finally within our reach. He knew exactly which buttons to press. Soundwave valued loyalty to the throne above all else. Satisfied by the drone's attitude, Soundwave looked him over. Scalpel mentioned you have aspirations. You seek an upgrade to a high-tier frame. Nathan's spark skipped a beat. This was it. The entire reason he'd been playing this dangerous game of triple agent. I do, Lord Soundwave, Nathan said, his voice steady. If I am to serve you and Lord Megatron effectively against the coming Autobot threat, I need a form that can withstand the fires of the front line. He didn't say he wanted power for himself. He framed it as an asset for the Decepticon Empire. Chapter 35, The Allspark Residue. Soundwave remained impassive in the face of Nathan's directness. Instead of a simple yes or no, he countered with a clinical observation. Your chassis is powered by a standard energy core. Nathan stiffened. Yes, Lord Soundwave. Then you are aware that an energy core corresponds to a mid-tier spark proxy. It lacks the output to sustain a high-tier frame. Nathan nodded, the logic clicking into place. If a mid-tier warrior was a sedan body and engine matched, then a high-tier frame was a heavy-duty semi-truck. Trying to power a truck with a sedan's engine would lead to only one result, a catastrophic internal meltdown. To ascend, one must evolve the spark and the frame in tandem, Soundwave continued. Or, evolve the spark first, then migrate to the vessel. Nathan knew what Soundwave meant. The soul was the spark, the raw energy unit, while the body was merely a collection of modules and kinetic parts. The core in your chest was manufactured by Starscream, Soundwave added. I cannot recalibrate his subpar engineering on short notice. If you wish to become a high-tier warrior, you must either find a superior power unit or acquire a true spark. A shadow of disappointment crossed Nathan's face. He understood the subtext. Soundwave could build him a body, but he couldn't hand him a soul. The loss of the Allspark was a tragedy etched into the processors of every Cybertronian. The leaders of both factions had been missing for centuries, searching for it. Its absence meant that natural births or forged bots were a dying breed. In the ancient days, life was a gift from the Allspark or the artifacts of the 13 Primes. Take Quintus Prime's Emberstone, for instance. It could bloom life in ways entirely different from the cube. But those relics were myth and dust now. Modern Cybertronians were cold constructed. It was a method born of desperation during the Civil War. Scientists from both sides had turned to artificial creation to replenish their ranks. They would build a powerful frame, upload an information chip containing the personality, and slot in a memory crystal. Finally, a synthesized energy unit would jump-start the system. The flaw was trust. During the soul migration, the subject had to enter a total stasis lock. You had to trust your technician with your very existence. And Nathan didn't have a single soul on this planet he could trust with his off switch. Do not look so hollow, little one. Seeing Nathan's dejection, a strange, metallic tilt appeared in Soundwave's visor, almost a smile. Given your current parameters, there is another way. Lord Soundwave, you mean? Nathan looked up, stunned. He had already started mentally preparing to walk away empty-handed, only for Soundwave to pivot the entire conversation. It is simple, Soundwave droned, his tone gaining a rare resonance. We shall give you a true spark. A true spark? Nathan hesitated. But... Lord Soundwave, is the Allspark not lost? Had Soundwave already located the Hoover Dam in the few minutes he'd been on Earth? That was impossible, even for the Decepticon Chief of Intelligence. The cube is gone, Soundwave confirmed. However, the well of Allsparks left behind residual energy on our home world. We have harvested what remained of the Allsparks' blood. It is how we have sustained our race this long. The well of Allsparks? Residual energy? A light went off in Nathan's memory core. In the primordial era, the Allspark wasn't just a cube, it was a localized font of cosmic power. Even after the cube was removed and taken to Iacon, the well where it once sat remained saturated with life-giving radiation. As Soundwave finished explaining, he reached into his chest compartment. He withdrew a transparent, cubic container filled with a swirling, fiery red liquid. Gulp. Nathan's internal servos hummed. No Cybertronian could look at raw Allspark energy and remain indifferent. This wasn't a standard energon cube like the one Scalpel used, this was the distilled essence of life itself. Does this compensation satisfy you? Soundwave tossed the cube. Nathan lunged forward, his hands outstretched, catching the precious cargo with more care than he'd ever shown his own life. Thank you, Lord Soundwave. This is more than I expected. Satisfied? Nathan was ecstatic. He had spent days scouting the Hoover Dam, hoping for a sliver of this energy. Now, Soundwave had handed it to him as a bonus for a job well done. It was a stark reminder that command-tier Decepticons didn't just have power, they had hoarded the planet's remaining heritage. This energy should be sufficient to trigger a spark awakening and support your transition to a high-tier frame, Soundwave said, cutting through Nathan's excitement. Save your celebrations for after I depart. I have instructions. My apologies, Lord Soundwave. Nathan suppressed his grin, falling back into a disciplined stance. His excitement was 30% genuine and 70% tactical theater. He needed to look like a greedy, ambitious grunt to avoid Soundwave's deeper scrutiny. What has Starscream been doing? What intelligence have you gathered on his movements? Starscream? Nathan's optics flickered. He chose his words with extreme care. He knew Scalpel was already Soundwave's mole. If he contradicted the doctor, he'd be scrapped. Lord Soundwave, I have been deployed on long-range scouting missions by Starscream for weeks. I have had little contact with the Central Command. Most of my time was spent searching for the High Man's artifacts in the northern sectors. He paused, offering a piece of information that sounded valuable but was technically harmless. I know Starscream has been absent from the base frequently. He doesn't disclose his coordinates to mid-tier units, but the atmosphere at the base is tense. He is searching for something he doesn't want the rest of us to find. Soundwave didn't look disappointed, he expected the compartmentalization. And what of the High Lord Megatron? Have your scouts found a trail? Nathan looked appropriately ashamed. I have found nothing but dead ends, my lord. The humans on this planet are primitive, but they excel at hiding things in the dirt. He couldn't tell Soundwave about the dam, not yet. He needed to be the one to discover it later to maximize his value. I see, Soundwave replied. In that case, you will continue your mission. Return to Starscream's side. Act as his loyal soldier. I will inform him that you were delayed by a malfunction in the tower's anchoring. Soundwave's visor glowed. You are now my eyes in his camp. Do not fail me, little one. Chapter 36, Ascension. Deep cover. Nathan felt a strange glitch in his logic centers at the word. It was surreal. He was a Decepticon created by Starscream, yet here he was, being formally inducted as a mole to spy on his own creator. He was starting to lose track of whose payroll he was actually on. Lord Soundwave, Nathan ventured, you requested that I delay my return to Lord Starscream's base for 3 days. Correct. Soundwave gave a slow, mechanical nod. He didn't reveal that he wasn't technically supposed to arrive for another 72 hours, instead, he offered a strategic rationale. A sudden jump to a high-tier frame will trigger Starscream's paranoia. In 3 days, I will provide a accurate explanation. I will claim the upgrade was a direct reward for your assistance in my arrival. It frames you as an asset I am using to find Megatron. A pre-packaged alibi? Nathan was floored. He had been racking his processors for a lie to tell Starscream, and here was the Chief of Intelligence handing him a bulletproof cover story. Thank you, Lord Soundwave. Soundwave's visor pulsed. He wasn't doing this out of kindness. A mid-tier drone was a pawn, a high-tier warrior who knew the local terrain and human customs was a bishop. With Brawl and Bone Crusher sidelined, he needed every capable hand he could get to alleviate the pressure on Barricade and Blackout. Spend these 3 days stabilizing your new frame. When I contact you, there will be objectives. Objectives. The word carried the weight of a heavy-duty chassis. Nathan knew better than to argue. You don't take a god's bribe and then refuse the temple work. As you command. One further note, Soundwave added. I am not as frugal as Starscream. Efficiency is rewarded. Once your evolution is complete, return to the base and seek out Scalpel. I have authorized him to install a high-tier ordnance module into your systems. Nathan offered his thanks again, feeling a bit numb. It was becoming clear, Soundwave and Scalpel were 2 hands of the same body. They didn't just share intelligence, they shared assets. Nathan recalled the future how in the original timeline, Scalpel was the one who performed the surgery to revive Megatron in the Laurentian Abyss, and he had emerged from the chest of Ravage, a member of Soundwave's cassette pack. Their partnership was deep, ancient, and absolute. And remember, Soundwave's voice dropped into a warning frequency that made Nathan's armor rattle. Our arrangement remains confidential. Not a word to Barricade, nor Blackout. To the rest of the world, you are Starscream's loyal shadow. Understood. Understood, my lord. A spy within a spy's camp. Nathan transformed into his Silver Fox interceptor mode and streaked away from the island, leaving the protoforms to their business. The Atlantic perimeter, midnight. Nathan's jet form circled a small, uninhabited crag in the middle of the Atlantic. Satisfied that no biological signatures were present, he touched down on a jagged peak. He wasn't going back to US airspace yet. Between Starscream's paranoia and the 5 other flight squadrons patrolling the skies, the risk of a random intercept was too high. He needed a tomb to be reborn in. He found a natural sea cave carved into the mountain's flank. It was spacious, damp, and perfectly shielded from overhead satellite surveillance. He dragged several massive boulders across the entrance, sealing himself in the dark. Standing in the center of the cavern, Nathan reached into his chest compartment and pulled out the cube of Allspark residue. The liquid inside was a swirling, violent crimson, the lifeblood of a dead star. He had waited for this moment since the second he woke up in a metal body. He had scouted the Hoover Dam for this. He had lied, killed, and bribed for this. He brought the cube to his chest. His primary armor plates retracted with a mechanical whine, exposing the glowing, humming energy core that served as his artificial heart. Click! The seals on the container broke. The fiery liquid didn't spill, it lunged. The energy was predatory, drawn to the heat of the core like a moth to a furnace. There was no blinding light. No cinematic explosion. For a moment, there was only silence. That's it. No system notification. Then, the world turned into white heat. Thrum thrum. His energy core began to pulse with a violent, rhythmic contraction. His entire chassis reached a temperature that should have melted his internal wiring. Every molecule of his body was being interrogated. The Earth-grade alloys Starscream had used to patch his drone frame together were being forcibly rewritten. This was the birth of Cybertronian living metal. Unlike the static steel of Earth, this metal possessed a memory. It could self-repair, adapt its molecular density for impact, and conduct energy with zero resistance. It was the difference between a stone statue and a living organism. The process was agonizingly fast. In 30 minutes, the heat subsided, replaced by a hum of power so clean it felt like silence. Nathan clenched his fist. The sound was different. The clatter of cheap metal had been replaced by the heavy, solid thud of high-tier plating. This is a spark. He looked at his chest. The artificial core was gone. In its place was a swirling, incandescent vortex of blue and white light, a miniature star contained within a lattice of living crystal. He felt he could run for a century without refueling. He felt he could punch through a mountain. Most importantly, he felt real. He wasn't a programmed drone with a human ghost inside anymore, he was a Decepticon. Chapter 37, Chapter 37, The Decepticon's Fangs. If a high-tier spark was this potent, it was hard to fathom the sheer magnitude of a commander or prime-level spark. At those levels, unless one was slagged in battle or sustained a terminal injury, natural spark flicker death was nearly impossible. It explained how Jetfire could lie dormant in a museum for decades in the original timeline without his spark completely extinguishing. Based on Jetfire's historical feats, he was at least commander tier, if not a prime adjacent relic. Nathan began testing his new parameters. His transformation speed had seen a massive uptick, the gears and plates shifted with a fluid, liquid-like grace that his old drone frame lacked. His weapons had also undergone a silent upgrade. Though the weapon types machine gun and rockets remained the same, their output was now calibrated for a high-tier chassis. The caliber hadn't changed, but the muzzle velocity and explosive yield were on an entirely different level. As for his armor, Nathan decided against testing it. He wasn't about to fire a rocket at his own feet just to see how much Cybertronian steel could take. The only slight disappointment was his height. Before the evolution, he stood at roughly 9 meters. Now, his frame had actually condensed, dropping to about 8 meters. I guess quality over quantity is the rule here, Nathan muttered, shaking his head. He didn't dwell on it. At 8 meters, he was still a heavy hitter by Decepticon standards, standing taller than both Soundwave and Barricade. Losing a meter in height was a small price to pay for the massive jump in density and power. Satisfied, he summoned his internal data HUD. Type: Combat Decepticon Armor, Cybertronian Steel, Living Metal, Weaponry, 12.6 mm Heavy Machine Gun, RH, Shoulder-Mounted Multi-Rocket Launcher, LS, Power, Spark, 100%, Class, High-Tier Chassis Combat Rating, High-Tier Warrior. Seeing the words High-Tier Warrior in glowing crimson sent a surge of genuine excitement through his circuits. Since his reincarnation, he had finally taken the first real step toward true power. He was no longer a T-22 drone, a disposable serial number. He was a recognized Cybertronian, a named entity in the hierarchy. In the Decepticon Empire, Commander and Prime-level warriors were rare. There were only 4 of them in the entire faction. They were the Architects and the Generals. High-tier and elite warriors like himself were the true backbone of the war machine, the ones who executed the missions that turned the tide of history. That serial number, it's time to bury it. Nathan winced at the T-22 tag. In Cybertronian culture, those without names were barely considered sentient, they were just tools. Now that he possessed a spark, he was forged in all the ways that mattered. He updated his profile, stripping away the drone designations. It felt right. His body was now composed of Cybertronian steel, the native living metal of his home world. Unlike the static alloys of Earth, this metal was saturated with AllSpark radiation, capable of self-repair and rapid adaptive shifting. I'll have to find some rare ores eventually, he thought. Elite warriors often reinforced their frames with functional metals or reinforced ores to give them an edge in melee. But Cybertron was a dead world, and those resources were millions of miles away. Maybe a trip to the moon is in order. He thought of Sentinel Prime and the Ark wreckage. If he remembered correctly, Sentinel had fled with a massive cache of space bridge pillars and technology. For an aspiring power player, that moon was a graveyard filled with gold. But for now, the plot was calling. 2 days later, the sands of Qatar. While Nathan was perfecting his new form, the fangs of the Decepticon vanguard finally sank into the earth. Blackout, this is Soundwave. Coordinates transmitted. Blackout acknowledges. AMH-53 PAVE low heavy lift helicopter, officially reported as crashed 3 months prior, appeared over the desert horizon. With a crackle of static, it banked its nose toward the Sakent base in Qatar. The base was the nerve center for U.S. special operations in the region. It was fortified, disciplined, and currently housing a team of elite soldiers returning from a mission. It should have been impenetrable. It was a slaughterhouse. When the empty helicopter transformed into a 10-meter-tall mechanical god, the base commander lost his grip on reality. Fire! Open fire now! The commander's scream was lost in the roar of Gatling guns and the panicked thud of boots on sand. Tanks and APCs circled the giant, unleashing a torrent of lead. Clang! Spark! Ping! The shells did nothing but scuff the paint. Blackout ignored them, his sensors focused elsewhere. With a single pulse of an electromagnetic interference blast, he fried the base's communications grid. High explosive rounds followed, scattering the ants into the dunes. From his chest, Blackout deployed a mechanical scorpion Scorponok to hunt down the stragglers. Then, he waded into the ruins of the command center, his massive talons ripping into the server banks to begin the data harvest. He was so focused on the digital stream that he didn't notice a single ant wielding a fire axe, swinging desperately at the hardline cable connecting the server to the terminal. Nathan received the news of Blackout's failure a day later. It didn't come from a news report, it came directly from Soundwave. Lord Soundwave, you're saying Blackout's data transfer was interrupted? Nathan sat in the ruins of an ancient temple, carefully modulating his response. The 3-day grace period was over, and as expected, the spymaster had made contact. He remembered this part of the movie vividly. Blackout had been seconds away from discovering the location of the AllSpark and Megatron when a human had manually severed the connection. Nathan didn't dare say "I told you so." Blackout was an elite-tier warrior, saying the wrong thing to Soundwave about his top lieutenant was a fast track to the scrap heap. Chapter 38, Chapter 38, The Double-Edged Blade. Soundwave's transmission cut through the static of Nathan's internal comms like a serrated blade. Blackout has failed. The data harvest was incomplete. However, Frenzy has secured a lead. I require you to rendezvous with Barricade and Frenzy. Ensure no further accidents occur. Assist Barricade and Frenzy? Nathan's processor's word. According to the timeline, Barricade and Frenzy should currently be deep diving into the global data web, hunting for the Wiki coordinates. I wonder how far they've gotten. Have they flagged Sector 7 yet? Nathan knew better than to question a direct order from a commander. Soundwave was his current benefactor, and in the Decepticon hierarchy, you didn't bite the hand that fed you AllSpark liquid. Lord Soundwave, where shall I find Lord Barricade? Coordinates. He will await you there. But first, return to Starscream's base. You have spoken with Lord Starscream. Affirmative. He has agreed to loan your services to me. You may depart. One more thing. Starscream is operating on behalf of a powerful Cybertronian entity. Identify this benefactor. A powerful entity? Nathan felt a chill run through his chassis. Soundwave was truly the master of whispers. Scalpel had been watching Starscream for months and only suspected he was searching for something. Soundwave had been on Earth for 3 days and was already closing in on the Fallen. Looking at the crumbling ruins of the island, Nathan felt a surge of caution. I need to watch my back. Having a satellite-linked spymaster over my head is a different kind of pressure. Nevada, Connors Canyon Base. When Nathan landed at the hidden entrance, he ran straight into a flight squadron returning from a refueling run. The leader was an old acquaintance, T-19. T-22? How are you a high-tier warrior? T-19 stared at Nathan's dense, silver fox-plated frame. Even though Nathan was a meter shorter than he used to be, the sheer pressure of his energy signature, the scent of a true spark, made T-19's speech processor hitch. Nathan offered a thin, metallic smile. He didn't explain. Soundwave would handle the official story with Starscream, and Starscream certainly wouldn't bother explaining it to a group of mid-tier grunts. Every Cybertronian frame emitted a specific energy frequency, a mechanical pheromone that signaled rank. T-19 knew he was looking at a superior officer. Long time no see, T-19, Nathan said, his voice now a deeper, resonant baritone. My name is Skyna. Skyna. It was a name Nathan had fashioned for himself. T-22 sounded like a discarded toaster. He was a high-tier warrior now, he was a named soul. He had simply taken his human name, inverted the syllables, and adapted the characters until it sounded predatory. It was functional, aggressive, and most importantly, it wasn't a number. Under Skyna's calm gaze, T-19 visibly faltered. He gritted his teeth, then slowly bowed his head. Lord Skyna. Skyna didn't linger. In the Decepticon world, status was everything. If you didn't demand respect, you invited a blade in the back. Kindness was an Autobot luxury. Skyna was a pragmatist, he played by the rules that kept him alive. The base was quiet. No one seemed to have noticed T-24's disappearance, or perhaps, in this nest of vipers, disappearances were too common to mention. Lord Starscream, I have returned. Skyna entered the incubation chamber. Starscream was hunched over a cluster of pulsating organic pods, sprinkling metal shavings over a group of Decepticon hatchlings. T-22? Ah, wait. Starscream turned, a mocking lilt in his voice. T-19 tells me I should address you as Skyna now. Skyna bowed his head. T-22 or Skyna, whichever Lord Starscream prefers. I remain your servant. Even as a high tier, Skyna knew he was a gnat compared to Starscream. He wasn't about to let a new chassis go to his head. Humph. At least you remember who your master is. Starscream kicked a few screeching hatchlings away from his legs. You're lucky. You happened to be in the right place when Soundwave arrived today. Skyna remained silent. He caught a vital detail. Starscream believed Soundwave had just arrived. Soundwave had intentionally hidden his 3-day head start to observe Starscream in secret. Since Soundwave used his private Allspark reserves to upgrade you and requested your aid in finding Megatron, I have granted him your service for a few days. Starscream laughed, a jagged, unpleasant sound. Let him do my work for me. He's essentially training my elite guard for free. Skyna kept his face neutral. Soundwave was playing Starscream like a fiddle, and Starscream was too arrogant to notice. Now, Starscream hissed, leaning in. Skyna, you know what to do when you're over there, don't you? I understand, Lord Starscream, Skyna replied smoothly. The moment Soundwave finds a lead on Lord Megatron, you will be the first to know. Lie to the liar. Spy on the spy. Because of his embedded logic chip, Starscream still believed he held Skyna's absolute loyalty. Excellent. The doors to the incubation chamber hissed shut. Skyna began walking toward the opposite end of the main corridor, Scalpel's laboratory. Starscream was stingy, He hadn't even offered a word of encouragement, let alone a weapon. Soundwave, at least, knew how to bait a hook. Time to collect my high-tier ordnance. He needed every advantage. He was heading into the field with Barricade, and eventually, they would cross paths with Bumblebee. The scout might be a little brother in the movies, but Skyna knew better. Bumblebee was a veteran killer who had been crushing Decepticons since the fall of Cybertron. 30+ chapters are available now and daily updates. At patreon.com/Agent Twilight. Chapter 39, Chapter 39, The Gilded Age. Skyna felt that the current situation on Earth was the most advantageous window he would ever get. The Autobot fleet hadn't arrived in force yet. Having just ascended to a high-tier warrior, he possessed enough raw power to operate with near impunity, even against human military divisions. In this brief lull, he could move across the board with relative safety. But once Optimus Prime touched down, that would be a different story. If he tried to act this boldly under the gaze of the last Prime, he'd likely be slagged the moment he showed his face. Scalpel's laboratory. As expected, the mid-tier guard T-26 was gone. Now that Soundwave was physically present on Earth, Starscream no longer felt the need or perhaps the courage to maintain an overt surveillance detail on the Spymaster's primary technician. I really hope he has a melee module. Skyna harbored a growing desire for a close-quarters weapon. Since his silent execution of T-24 on the island, he had realized the efficiency of a blade. If he'd had a thermal sword or an energon claw, he could have punched through T-24's spark casing in a single thrust far cleaner than the messy exchange of machine guns and rockets. It's you. The gluttonous Decepticon. Before Skyna could ping the door's comms, it hissed open, and a small, skittering shadow emerged. Skyna looked down and felt a flicker of amusement. He pretended not to see the tentacle bug, stepping forward with deliberate weight. His foot hovered directly over the small scout. Hey! Hey! Watch the path! Skyna's new frame stood at 8 meters. Though shorter than before, he was denser, and to the tentacle bug, he was a walking mountain of living metal. Ah! Faster! Move faster! The bug's 4 spindly legs blurred into a frantic scramble, narrowly escaping the descending metal sole a microsecond before impact. Thud. Oh, it's you, Bug, Skyna shrugged, his face played a mask of feigned innocence. Sorry, didn't notice you there. Thanks to their secret deal in the Energon Vault, their relationship was actually quite stable, though the Bug insisted on calling him a glutton because Skyna had once drained an entire cube in one sitting. Out of respect for Scalpel, Skyna usually let the insult slide. Humph! You did that on purpose. I'm going to tell Master Scalpel. Wait. What? The Bug's optical sensors widened. You've ascended. High tier. Indeed, Skyna crouched slightly, looking the Bug in the eye with a predatory glint. So you might want to watch your tone from now on. Not even Scalpel can protect a Bug that gets stepped on by a high-tier warrior. I understand. The Bug's voice withered, its usual arrogance replaced by the survival instincts of a low-level unit. Satisfied with the show of dominance, Skyna straightened up and strode into the laboratory. Master Scalpel. The lab was exactly as he remembered, a chaotic symphony of clanking metal and blue electric arcs. Scalpel was perched on an exam table, hunched over a pile of circuitry, his multiple limbs moving with surgical precision. Skyna leaned in, curious. Master Scalpel, what are you working on? Back off, you overgrown gearhead. Don't touch my equipment. Scalpel shrieked without looking up. To Scalpel, most Decepticons were nothing but clumsy oafs who broke things by breathing on them. He wasn't about to let a grunt near his prototype energy devices. Skyna backed off, but his sensors caught a glimpse of a faint blue sphere on the table, a pulsating orb that radiated a familiar, albeit weaker, energy frequency. Wait a moment, Scalpel grumbled. I already sent the bug to fetch the modules. Understood. Skyna noticed the lab was more crowded than before. Several racks held salvaged limbs and chassis parts. He recognized the serial numbers, they were the failures from the clone vats. Scalpel was clearly scavenging the discarded experiments for his own research, perhaps aiming to rival the cold, logical engineering of Shockwave. Scalpel finished his work quickly. He approached Skyna carrying 2 heavy weapon modules. The tentacle bug was nowhere to be seen, likely still nursing its bruised ego outside. High-tier weapon modules. I only have these 2 in stock. Pick one. Scalpel dropped them onto the floor with a heavy metallic clang, then began circling Skyna, his many optics scanning the new silver fox plating. Well? How does the new frame feel? Exquisite. Better than I ever imagined. Skyna dipped his head. I owe you my thanks for speaking to Lord Soundwave on my behalf. The gratitude was genuine. Without Scalpel's recommendation, Soundwave would have treated him as just another disposable tool. Gaga. Keep your thanks. It was earned, Scalpel chattered. Just remember to find that crashed Decepticon ship for me. That's all the thanks I need. I have not forgotten. I will inform you the moment I have a lead. Skyna offered the usual platitudes, though he made a mental note to actually start looking. With Soundwave in the mix, he couldn't afford to be sloppy with his promises. He picked up the 2 modules, but his expression soured. Master Scalpel, is there no melee option? A blade? A flail? Scalpel glared at him. A blade? Do you think high-tier modules grow on trees? These are what I have. Take them or leave them. Skyna looked at the options. They were technically high-tier, but they were strategically flawed. Air compression cannon, compresses atmospheric gas into high-impact shockwaves. Drawback, requires a significant charge-up time. Flame projector, fires high-explosive incendiary ceramic rounds at 100 rpm. Drawback, 0 armor penetration, strictly for soft targets. Skyna shook his head. Against a high-tier opponent, the flame projector was useless. Ceramic rounds would just shatter against Cybertronian steel. And the compression cannon? In a high-speed battle with the Autobots, charge-up time was just another way of saying please kill me while I stand still. An idea struck him. He thought of Soundwave's minicons, the tiny, lethal force multipliers that gave the Spymaster his edge. Master Scalpel, Skyna said tentatively. Are you capable of creating a life form? Scalpel froze. He looked at Skyna, then a manic grin split his faceplate. You don't want a gun. You want a pet. Exactly. Skyna nodded. He didn't want a clone drone like Squadron 4. He wanted a partner, a loyal, compact intelligence that could do the dirty work he was too large for. I can do it, Scalpel said, gesturing to the glowing blue orb on the table. I've spent the last few days reverse engineering the energy core I found in your original drone data. I've managed to stabilize a prototype energy unit. A test subject. Skyna realized Scalpel had been waiting for an excuse to see if his bootleg Spark proxies actually worked. Perfect. Let's see what we can build. 30+ chapters are available now and daily updates. At patreon.com/agenttwilight. Chapter 40, The Secret Summit. The 2 high-tier weapon modules didn't stay in Skyna's hands for long. He handed them back to Scalpel without a second thought and, at the surgeon's request, stepped into the role of a heavy lifting assistant. Since he was building his own companion, Skyna had 0 complaints. He was remarkably proactive, detailing exactly what functions he needed. Scalpel, ever the pragmatist, shot down the impossible requests while refining the practical ones. Washington, D.C., USA, the Pentagon. The Department of Defense headquarters was a sprawling, 5-sided labyrinth designed to house over 30,000 personnel. Today, one of its secure briefing rooms was a hive of frantic activity. In the front row, high-ranking military officials huddled in low-toned conversations, trading fragmented intelligence. Behind them sat a sea of young faces, hackers, analysts, and cryptologists, while staff scurried past with armloads of classified folders. Everything indicated a Level A national security crisis. Secretary of Defense John Keller entered through a side door, his expression grim. "Good evening, Mr. Secretary." "At ease, soldier." Keller acknowledged the salutes with a distracted nod. He looked out at the rows of analysts and frowned. "They're too young." A nearby aide stepped forward. "Sir, these were chosen per your specific requirements. They are the best signal experts in the country. The NSA has been recruiting directly from high school programs for years. They're the only ones who can keep up with modern encryption." "I see." Keller let the matter drop. He was a man of policy and power. The age of his tools mattered less than their sharpness. In the audience, a slightly chubby young man with glasses nudged his companions. "Guys! Look! It's the Secretary of Defense." "What?" His friends followed his gaze, spotting the silver-haired man surrounded by a phalanx of generals. "Oh man, I can't believe we're actually in the same room as him," one whispered, adjusting his collar. "I am totally underdressed for this." Minutes later, Keller checked his watch and signaled the start. "Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary John Keller." The room snapped to attention. Keller didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Sit. I am John Keller. You're likely wondering why you were pulled out of your lives on such short notice. Yesterday, at 1900 hours local time, our Sakent base in Qatar was attacked." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The idea that a U.S. military stronghold could be obliterated was, to them, a concept reserved for movies. "Quiet," Keller commanded. "According to current intelligence, there were no survivors. The objective of the attack was an intrusion into the military's secure network. We don't know what they wanted, but we know the hack was interrupted. We believe they will strike again." Keller's face hardened. "No one has claimed responsibility. Our only lead is this." He gestured to the massive screen behind him. A spectral waveform appeared, accompanied by a sound that made the hair on the analyst's necks stand up. "Zzzzz teacher scree." It was a guttural, mechanical screech, like a demon speaking in binary. If Skynaw had been in the room, he would have recognized it instantly as the signature data burst of a Decepticon. "That is the signal that tried to gut our systems," Keller announced. "The NSA is working on it, but I need your specialized minds to find the source. This is a race against time. Your teams have been assigned. Get to work. Good luck." Back in the lab, the birth of a hunter. Because Scalpel's lab was now stocked with spare parts from Starscream's failed clone vats, materials were plentiful. With Skynaw acting as the muscle and Scalpel as the mind, a new frame began to take shape over the next 2 hours. Skynaw had considered several forms, but he ultimately settled on a Minicon class. It wouldn't have a vehicle mode, instead, he wanted a beast mode transformation gear. Cybertron wasn't just home to the Transformers. It was a metal ecosystem. There were energy-sucking jellyfish, scraplets that devoured steel, and data mayflies that fed on discarded code. Among the apex predators was the mechanical Black Panther. The mechanical panther was an Allspark-derived species, a sleek, lethal hunter that thrived on radiation and metal. Skynaw's version was modeled after these beasts, resembling an Earth jaguar but larger, more angular, and equipped with a primary weapon module on its spine. A basic warrior class, Skynaw noted, a bit disappointed. He had wanted something like Blackout's Scorponok, but Scalpel's bootleg tech could only stabilize a low-tier Spark proxy for now. Still, a low-tier Cybertronian beast was more than enough to shred a human special forces team. Aha! Done. All that's left is the information chip. Scalpel cackled, rubbing his surgical appendages together. Skynaw looked at the inert metal panther and smiled. Finally, as Scalpel began coding the personality chip, his limbs moving so fast they became a metallic blur, Skyna felt a sense of irony. The Dragon Slayer becomes the dragon. He was watching someone program a soul for the sole purpose of absolute loyalty. He had insisted on it. A pet that could turn on its master wasn't a pet, it was a liability. Lord Skyna, bring me the chassis. Scalpel had adopted the new name with surprising ease. You finished that quickly, Master Scalpel? Skyna asked, lifting the heavy panther frame onto the table. I've developed a rapid encoding method, Scalpel chattered. It's much faster than the old protocols. Your technical skill is becoming formidable, Skyna remarked, genuinely impressed. You're starting to rival Lord Shockwave. TCH Shockwave. Scalpel let out a dismissive hiss, though it was unclear if he had a grudge against the Cyclopean scientist or simply thought his own work was superior. Skyna didn't push it. Among the old guard, rivalries were blood-deep. Powering on, Scalpel announced. Let's see if your little shadow has teeth. 30+ chapters are available now and daily updates. At patreon.com/agenttwilight. Chapter 41, Chapter 41, The Shadow of the Panther. Skyna assisted Scalpel in the final integration, carefully slotting the information chip and the energy unit into the black chassis. This hands-on experience was a crash course in Cybertronian engineering knowledge that might one day allow him to repair himself without a medic. It is ready, Scalpel whispered, his optics twitching with anticipation. Now, we wait for the data handshake. Skyna leaned in. This was his first true subordinate. Even if it was just a pet, it was a soul bound to his own. He watched the inert metal frame with bated breath. Slowly, 2 pinpricks of crimson light flickered to life in the panther's visor. The machine didn't roar, it simply lowered its head in a gesture of absolute fealty. Master. Your loyal servant, Black Panther, reporting for duty. Black Panther? Skyna's processors hummed. He liked the simplicity. That will be your name. Stand. Yes, Master. A newly created Decepticon lacks complex emotions, they are tabula rasa, possessing only the logic and directives hardwired into their chips. Black Panther stood motionless, a silent shadow awaiting the next command. Skyna circled the beast, admiring the craftsmanship. The panther was significantly larger than an Earth jaguar, 2 meters long and a meter high. It was a masterpiece of Decepticon brutality, limbs corded with synthetic muscle cables, claws like obsidian daggers, and a tail that ended in a serrated steel stinger. Its maw was a trap of interlocking alloy teeth designed to shred through titanium. But its most lethal feature was hidden. Skyna knew that the panther's spine could split open to deploy a high-precision laser cannon for surgical strikes. A true hunter, Skyna noted. Then, he gave a sharper command, Black Panther, transform. Mode, infiltration. Shock 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 clang. The beast reconfigured. In seconds, a human-sized robotic figure stood before him. At just under 2 meters, the humanoid form was roughly the size of a tall human male. Because its parts were salvaged from the failed clone vats, it looked like a miniature, more refined version of a standard Decepticon soldier. Skyna nodded in satisfaction. This was the point. At 8 meters tall, Skyna couldn't follow humans into buildings or slip through alleys. Black Panther was his proxy, his eyes and ears in the human world. Furthermore, the Panther was equipped with a spy module, a suite of tools for Trojan injections, electronic paralysis, and data theft. It was a light version of Soundwave's Ravage, but it was his. While Skyna ran diagnostics, Scalpel prepared the final gift, a mass displacement device. In Transformers lore, this technology allows a massive robot to shrink into a handheld object. It works by shunting excess mass into a localized subspace pocket, leaving only the spark and core processors in the physical world. The universe in a handful of dust, Skyna mused, taking the compressed metal cube that was now Black Panther. He realized that while he used mass displacement, Soundwave used something far more advanced: quantum resonance. Soundwave could turn his soldiers into pure data streams stored within a quantum resonator in his chest. Skyna wasn't there yet, but for now, having a cube he could deploy from his own chassis was a game changer. It meant he could carry his army with him. California, USA, Marshall High School. While the Decepticons perfected their hunters, the prey was currently struggling with a history presentation. Sam Witwicky stood at the front of a bored classroom, his hands shaking as he prepared to dump his backpack onto the podium. Who did that? Who fired the rubber band? The teacher, Mr. Hosny, snapped to his feet, his thinning hair practically vibrating with rage. In my classroom, we respect the process. Show some responsibility. Finding no culprit, he gestured for Sam to continue. Right. For my family history project, I'm talking about my great-grandfather, Sam stammered. Captain Archibald Witwicky. He was a famous explorer, a man of destiny. Sam launched into a frantic, high-speed retelling of Archibald's Arctic expedition. But as the story reached its climax, his tone shifted from historical to entrepreneurial. And that's the story. I have some of his artifacts here. This is a 19th century quadrant used by sailors. You can have it for $80. Or this sextant. $50. Very high quality. He pulled out the final item, a pair of old, cracked, round-framed glasses. And this is the coolest part. My great-grandfather's glasses. They've seen things no one else has. I haven't set a firm price, but I think they're worth at least. Sam, are you going to sell your great-grandfather's socks next? Mr. Hosny interrupted, sighing. This is an 11th grade history class, not a flea market. I'm sorry, Mr. Hosny. I know. But it's for my car fund. If anyone wants to find me on eBay, I'm ladiesman217. I take PayPal or cash. Enough, Sam. Sam didn't stop. He held up a yellowed, brittle newspaper clipping. My great-grandfather was smart, but he went blind and well, a little crazy. He was put in an asylum. He kept drawing these weird symbols and talking about a giant iceman he found in the Arctic. Chapter 42, Sam's First Ride. In the classroom, most of the students were half asleep. Only one girl, the strikingly beautiful Michaela Baines, looked at Sam with a flicker of pitying interest. Fortunately for Sam, the torture didn't last long. BRR ring. All right, class dismissed. Mr. Hosny snapped his book shut. And remember, there might be a test tomorrow, or there might not. Sleep in fear tonight. As the students rushed for the door, Sam scrambled to grab his grandfather's glasses, shouting at their retreating backs, anyone? $50? 40? 30? 20? Come on, help a guy out. Hey, Sam. Give it a rest. They're gone, Hosny called from his desk. Sam waited until the room was empty before approaching the teacher with a practiced, desperate smile. Mr. Hosny, that went well, right? Hosny nodded thoughtfully. I think AB is a fair grade. Sam's face fell. AB? But everyone loved the story. You told a rambling story about your crazy grandfather in my history class, Sam. Sam leaned over the desk, his expression turning deathly serious. Mr. Hosny, can you do me a favor? Look out that window. Hosny adjusted his glasses and looked. Sitting in a green convertible on the curb was Sam's father, Ronald. Do you see my father? I'm going to tell you about a dream, Mr. Hosny. A boy's dream. A man promised that boy that if he got $2,000 and 3 A's, he would buy him a car. His first car. I have the money. I have 2 A's. And now, because of your bee, my dream is dead. If you were that boy, what would you do? Hosni didn't answer. He just leaned back, arms crossed, watching Sam's theatrical performance with a blank, unimpressed stare. 10 minutes later, Sam practically floated out of the classroom. He had successfully bartered his way to an A. His father kept his word, though not in the way Sam expected. They skipped the Porsche dealership and headed straight for a local used car lot. Neither of them noticed a battered yellow 1976 Camaro with black racing stripes quietly rolling into the back of the lot driverless, its engine humming with a life of its own. Nevada, Connors Canyon. Wish wish wish. 4 strangely shaped interceptors screeched out of the clouds, banking sharply as they descended into the canyon. Before touching the ground, they shifted, metal grinding against metal, until 4 4-meter-tall Decepticons stood in the dust. Finally. I wonder what Lord Skynaw wants with us on such short notice, E13 grumbled, cycling his optics. Probably a new mission, E14 added, opening the massive blast doors of the base. He's a high-tier warrior now. Starscream probably gave him a specialized objective, and he's bringing us along for the ride. Squadron 4 was ecstatic. In the Decepticon world, your status was tied to your commander. Since Skynaw's ascension had become base-wide news, their own standing among the clone drones had skyrocketed. They weren't just E-series trash anymore, they were the personal squadron of a high-tier elite. It's a shame about our hideout, though, E16 sighed. We just got the insulation fixed. Forget the hideout. E14 snapped. Soundwave is here. It won't be long before we find Megatron. We'll be ruling this rock soon, no more hiding in holes like rats. E13 glared at him. Hiding was Lord Skynaw's direct order. Are you questioning his strategy? I'm not questioning. Who is questioning me? The voice was flat, resonant, and came from the shadows of the main corridor. The 4 bots froze. Standing there was a towering, silver fox-plated figure. He was shorter than before, but the raw pressure coming from his spark was suffocating. Lord Skynaw. The 4 bots immediately bowed their heads. Skynaw had been watching them from the corner for several minutes. He didn't care about their petty bickering. At his current level, he didn't need to exert dominance through violence. The sheer gap in their power levels did the work for him. Go to the Energon Vault. Refuel, Skynaw commanded. We leave shortly for a new assignment. Yes, my lord. They scrambled away, eager to be out of the weight of his gaze. Skynaw watched them go, then turned toward the exit. He was taking them to rendezvous with Barricade and Frenzy. Soundwave had reported that Frenzy had a lead, but Skynaw knew how the movie went. Barricade would eventually run into Bumblebee. If a fight broke out, Skynaw wanted 4 mid-tier bodies to soak up the scout's plasma fire while he looked for an opening or a quick exit. 217 Crescent Drive, Los Angeles. All right, Mocho. I've got the car. Now I just need the girl. Sam Witwicky burst into his room, throwing his backpack onto the floor and diving for his computer. His chihuahua, Mocho, twitched an ear from the rug. I need a girlfriend. And I need money to take her out. He pulled up eBay. Username, Ladiesman217 Item, Archibald Witwicky's glasses bids, 0. Great. I'm broke. Sam sighed, closing the laptop. He walked over to the mirror, checked his teeth, and sprayed a massive cloud of breath freshener into his mouth. He began rehearsing his cool guy persona for when he inevitably got pulled over by the cops. How's it going, officer? Yeah, I'm legal. Here's the license. No big deal, just driving my car. 30+ chapters are available now and daily updates. At patreon.com/Agent Twilight. Chapter 43, Chapter 43, Barricade and Frenzy. In the Witwicky backyard, Judy and Ronald were busy repairing a patch of lawn that had been mysteriously flattened. At the edge of the driveway sat a battered yellow muscle car, its finish scuffed but its presence undeniable. Judy, wearing white gardening gloves and clutching a bouquet, stepped gingerly across the stone path. "Honey, this stone is uneven," she called out. Ronald, digging into the dirt with a trowel, didn't look up. "Yeah, maybe. And this one is loose." "I'll fix it, Judy. Why can't we just hire a professional? Every time you handle it, it falls apart 2 weeks later." The front door opened, and Sam stepped out, looking significantly more polished than usual. There was an outdoor party that afternoon, and Sam had heard a certain girl Michaela Baines would be there. He intended to be her ride home. He jingled his car keys at his parents, a silent victory dance. "Oh, Sam." Ronald sighed, shaking his head. "What? You don't want me to go?" "I don't want footprints on my lawn. That's why I built the path." Ronald gestured wildly at the concrete strip. "Why won't you use the path, Sam?" "I'm not leaving footprints. And technically, this lawn belongs to the whole family." "You'll understand when you have your own grass," Ronald grumbled. Judy chimed in, "Listen to your father, Sam. He's still upset about those mysterious tire tracks from a few days ago. He hasn't been able to fix the ruts yet." "Don't push him." "Damn right," Ronald muttered, his face a mask of suburban agony. "Wait until I catch the person who did that." He had no idea that the person was currently sitting in his driveway, disguised as a 1976 Camaro. "Fine, Mom," Sam relented, backing off the grass and onto the path. He headed for the car. "Home by 11, Sam," Judy called. "Seat belt. Drive safe," Ronald added. "Got it." 11. Sam hopped into the driver's seat. Before turning the key, he habitually ran his finger over the center of the steering wheel. There sat a strange, stylized crest, a mechanical face composed of 3 triangles and a shield-like pentagon. He'd liked the symbol the moment he saw it at the lot. He turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then let out a roar of black and yellow smoke that blanketed the entire yard. "Wow, honey," Judy coughed into her bouquet. "Your eye for quality is truly unique." Ronald watched the blurry yellow tail lights fade into the street. "You don't get it, Judy. That's a man's first car. It's supposed to smoke." "Austin, Texas, the ghost factory. Where is he? Where is the reinforcement soundwave promised?" A roar echoed through an abandoned industrial plant on the outskirts of Austin. A 5-meter-tall mechanical monster barricade slammed a massive fist into a brick wall, sending a shower of debris across the floor. On his fenders, the words "to punish and enslave" glowed in the fading sunlight. "The target is moving toward Austin. If this Skynaw doesn't show up, we act alone," chirped a skeletal, 4-eyed robot nearby. This was Frenzy. His thin metal limbs twitched like insect antennae, his blue optics flickering with erratic energy. "We aren't waiting. We move wait." Barricade looked up. Frenzy did the same. 5 sonic booms shattered the silence. High above, a Silver Fox interceptor and 4 support jets tore through the clouds before banking sharply. They transformed in mid-air, hitting the factory floor with a heavy, rhythmic thud that made the cracked walls groan. Skynaw stood at the front, his new Silver Fox plating catching the last of the sun. "Barricade." "Frenzy." Skynaw took point, his resonant voice filling the space. "Lord Barricade, I am Skynaw of Lord Starscream's command. I have been dispatched to assist in the recovery of Lord Megatron." Barricade's optics narrowed. He recognized the signature. "Skynaw? You were that drone on the island. You've ascended to high tier." "I have, Lord Barricade." Frenzy skittered forward, his high-pitched voice buzzing with excitement. "Ooh! More Decepticons! Let's break things! Let's go! We take Air Force One! We hack the humans! We show them the fangs. Air Force One. The name triggered a memory for Skyna. This was the moment Frenzy would infiltrate the president's plane to bypass the Pentagon's firewalls. Enough, Frenzy. Barricade's voice turned cold as he stepped toward Skyna. Skyna, you are late. And why did you bring these vermin with you? He gestured with a jagged claw towards Squadron 4. We are on a stealth mission, not a parade. Skyna sensed the hostility. This was the pre-Bumblebee Barricade, arrogant, predatory, and eager to flex his rank as an elite scout. He hadn't yet been beaten into the hide-and-seek specialist he would later become. Skyna didn't flinch. He signaled for E-13 and the others to take to the air and maintain a perimeter. As they transformed and flew out, Skyna turned back to the scout. My arrival was dictated by the finalization of my chassis, Lord Barricade. As for the squadron, they are under Lord Starscream's direct orders to ensure this mission does not fail like the operation in Qatar. The mention of Qatar and Starscream was a deliberate jab. Barricade stiffened. Starscream was notorious for his petty vengeance. If Barricade overstepped and word got back to the commander, it would be a long, painful cycle. Humph. Barricade backed off, his posture slightly less aggressive. Fine. But if your vermin get in my way, I'll scrap them myself. Frenzy, get the gear. We have a flight to catch. 30+ chapters are available now and daily updates. At patreon.com/Agent Twilight. New chapter is coming soon. Write a review.